Understanding bar graphs. First, let us define bar graphs. A bar graph is a chart that plots data using rectangular bars or columns. They can be plotted vertically or horizontally. There are two kinds of bar graphs. First is a single bar graph. You will know that a bar graph is single because on its x-axis there is only a single column per description. As you remember, it can either be written vertically or horizontally. And the second kind is a double bar graph because there are two columns per description in the bar graph. In understanding bar graphs, it is important to be able to comprehend what the bar graph is all about and also to draw inferences from the information presented by the bar graph. We will learn how to draw inferences from a double bar graph. Let us look at the double bar graph presented. The title of this bar graph is Recommended Amount of Sleep. It provides the number of hours per day, recommended amount of sleep per age group, from minimum, that is in yellow, and the maximum number of hours in green. If you have noticed, this bar graph is also written or done vertically. Let us try to answer some questions in relation to this bar graph. The first question is, what age group requires the highest amount of sleep per day? What you need to do in order to answer this question is to first look at the columns. Which of the columns presented has the highest amount of sleep per day? And then proceed to what age group does that column belongs. If you have noticed, the column that has the highest amount of sleep per day is encircled. And the green column reaches through 17 hours per day. And if you look at it towards the bottom, this column belongs to 0 to 3 months age group, which is also pointed by the arrow. Therefore, the age group that requires the highest amount of sleep per day is 0 to 3 months. Here is our second question. What age group requires the least amount of sleep per day? The least amount means the lowest number of hours per day. If you look at the graph, the column with the lowest amount of sleep per day is on the rightmost part. And then you check what age group it belongs to. Here, the column with the least amount of sleep per day is encircled, and it reaches to maximum of 8 hours per day. And this column belongs to the age group 65 years and older, which is pointed by the arrow. Therefore, we can say that the age group that requires the least amount of sleep per day is the age group of 65 years and older. Our third question is, since you are an elementary student, how many hours of sleep should you have every day? Now, you need to know what age group an elementary student belongs to. Since you yourself is an elementary student, you know that you belong to the age group of 6 to 13 years. Now find that column of your specific age group so you will know the number of hours of sleep you should have every day. Encircled in the bar graph is the column of 6 to 13 years age group. When you look at the columns, since this is a double bar line, the minimum number of hours of sleep required per day is 9. And the maximum number of hours of sleep per day reaches at 11 hours. Therefore, an elementary student needs at least 9 hours or 9 to 11 hours of sleep per day. Here is our final question about the bar graph. And this question lets us draw inference from the data presented in the graph. Looking at the bar graph, what can you infer about age and the recommended numbers of hours of sleep per day? In other words, what does this bar graph tells us about the amount of sleep each age group requires? If you observe just by looking at the columns, you will see that there is a downward slope from the left to the right. But the age group, the number of years per person is also growing older. Therefore, we can say that as a person grows older, the recommended number of hours of sleep per day is also getting smaller. So the younger you are, the more hours of sleep you need, while the older you are, the lesser number of hours of sleep you need per day. This is an example of how we can draw inferences from a bar graph. Now, different data, different information can be presented in a variety of ways using bar graphs. And bar graphs helps us understand more these kinds of informations compared to just reading it like a paragraph.